the private accounts for the banks, and there is a line called marketing expenses. I mean, is it fair to assume that e-commerce marketing is included in that line?
That would be my assumption, but again,
you never know.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. I guess turning to other cash flow items. And I think in this particular case, there's probably not that much to discuss here, but just want to make sure that I'm not missing anything. So I mean, sort of on the reported numbers, I'm seeing that capex as a percent of revenue has been anything between sort of 2.3 to say 3%. I think sort of based on my previous work for retailers, that sounds about sort of the right number. Are there any reasons to believe that this should be much higher or much lower going forward? I would think that sort of given the attempts and strategic efforts to maintain brick and mortar share, like probably, if anything, capex as percentage of revenue should not decrease, right? I mean, if anything, it should probably slightly tick up because you have to have fancier stores and more stuff in there.
Yeah, if you would have asked me what just a rule of thumb number should be, I would have told you 3%. And there are, two different factors which from my perspective should pretty much balance out. On one hand, the Douglas business model, the Douglas brand, and also the stores need some rejuvenation, some refreshing. And, the consumer must learn that, hey, we're looking at a different Douglas now. Things have changed, and that will require some capex. So whatever initiative you take, and I think we do agree that the top management team has to come up with a couple of good ideas just to break this trend. It will cost some money, and there will be some capex associated, which should push the capex above the 3%. We feel, from a long-term perspective, is a reasonable assumption. Now, on the other hand, we also know that Douglas is under a lot of pressure, and they definitely will be squeezed for cash. That clearly is coming up. So even though the company now is run by private equity for quite some time, and I'm sure that always was one of the key, always an area that they focused on, I would again give them the benefit of the doubt that despite the fact that they will have to fund some initiatives, that over the next couple of years, the 3% assumption should be a pretty solid one. Yeah.
Got it. Is there anything to note with regard to sort of any potential changes in working capital on the tech side? Any other sort of cash flow items that I should be keeping in mind?
No. There always are initiatives in terms of if we can reduce the level of merchandise we have on stock, we could set free X amount of cash. I'm sure that game has been played before, and it will be played again. This always is on the agenda for management. Private equity makes sure they never forget about that issue. But if you look at, long-term averages over a couple of years, because as the working capital base is fluctuating, you see pretty strong movements quarter by quarter. But once you look at, long-term averages, it kind of levels out. And we all know that the Douglas business model requires Douglas to have more products on its shelves than some of, its competitors, because the Douglas business model is based on the idea we deliver superior service, and if you go to a store and you expect them to have that product